first-time buyer, it can be quite daunting picking a mortgage. How do you know which mortgage is right for you? What are the different options? Well, today we'll be going over what mortgages are available for first-time buyers in 2022. Hello, welcome back to our channel and podcast. My name's Gemma, and here at WS we talk about all things relating to money, mortgages and positive money mindset. So if that interests you, then be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the thumbs up. It really helps with our YouTube algorithm and means that you won't miss out on any of our videos. On today's episode of Let's Talk Money and Mortgages, we have Ifti joining us once again. And for those of you who don't know Ifti, Ifti is a trained accountant and mortgage broker who has been in the industry for over 10 years. And he is also one of the founding directors here at WYS. Welcome back, Ifti. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm well, thank you. How are you doing?
Yes, not bad, thank you. So today we are talking all about first-time buyers and the different options that they have. Quite a few different options, isn't there? It's quite nice to see there's so many.
That's right. Yeah, I think 2021 we went in with a lot of optimism, but towards the latter end of 2021, a lot of these options start coming out. So I think 2022 is a year that you certainly can look forward to first-time buyers, right? So that's what it's looking like. So yeah, hopefully it should be a better year for first-time buyers.
Definitely. Well, to get into it, I'm going to start with our first one that we're going to talk about, which is 5% Generation Buy Scheme. Yeah. Can you give us a bit more information about this, Ifti?
Okay, so this is something that the government introduced towards the latter part of the year, and I think this is going to be full flow next year. This is where the government guarantees the bank. They call it up to 20%, right? But whereas, as far as the customer is concerned, they've got to put a 5% deposit down. So that's what this scheme is about, right? So it's a government-backed scheme which sort of guarantees the bank that in case somebody does default, that the government will sort of pitch in. So based on that guarantee, the banks feel a little bit more confident to lend out. So that is kind of what the scheme is about. So it's something that the government did promise about a year ago, and this is now fully come into flow, right? So people are making use of this benefit. So yeah, so fingers crossed this is a good scheme for first-time buyers.
Definitely. Well, guys, I just wanted to make a little point here that we're going to kind of be going through them quite briefly today, but we will be doing more videos on each one of these. So stay tuned for our other videos. And obviously, if you do want to know more information, I'll leave our contact details below so that you can get in touch with us. The next one that we're going to do is 5% deposit mortgages.
Okay, so this is once the government introduced the scheme, some of the banks who were not part of the scheme, they also introduced 5% deposit mortgages for first-time buyers, which is, again, more welcoming because for people who missed out on these banks, there were other options outside as well, right? So it made things a little bit more easier. Before COVID, there were quite a few 5% deposit schemes. Then during COVID, it all vanished, right? So we had 15%, right? Which is sort of almost unachievable for a lot of first-time buyers. So now the banks are also backing this, which is really good. You have more options now with 5% deposits.
And the next one we're going to talk about is 5% deposits for new builds, because that's a different scheme, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So some banks, there aren't too many, but some banks have introduced a 5% deposit mortgage for new builds. Usually and traditionally, new builds, most lenders need a 15% deposit. There are a few who do 10%, but there are a few who have come up who will accept 5% as a deposit as well. So that is a very welcome move because otherwise new builds are unachievable for some first-time buyers. So that is a good scheme that some of the banks have introduced as well. Like I said, there aren't too many banks who do it, but there is a handful who will look at this option as well.
Yeah, and it's slightly different from the 5% Help to Buy scheme, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. So Help to Buy is a slightly different scheme. We have the Help to Buy equity loan scheme still around. There is a deadline for that. We have just over a year to go till the deadline. So the Help to Buy equity loan scheme is where the government will put 20% deposit down and you have to put a minimum of a 5% deposit, right? So together you buy the house where the bank lends you 75%, right? So that scheme is also available for people. Obviously, Help to Buy is a brilliant scheme. There are cons as well with this scheme because, the government owns part of your house. So when you go to settle Help to Buy, you got to pay 20% of the property value at that point, right? So some people don't like this scheme, right? But there is definitely a lot of advantages because if you're struggling to sort of buy that house with your 5% deposit and your borrowings are slightly lesser, Help to Buy may be an option, right? It has been around for a long time. It's worked very well for a lot of people, right? So don't discount this. Help to Buy is a very, very good scheme. Here, government also contributes 20%, and you put 5%, and you could buy the house. So it is a brilliant scheme, and I'm glad we can see this in the year to come as well.
Definitely. The next one is one of my favourites, the 5.5 times income mortgages.
Oh, yes.
This is something new we've just seen recently. It's very exciting for first-time buyers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even at the best of times, first-time buyers traditionally got about 4.5 times their income, or 4.75 times their income if they were lucky. I mean, there were lenders who were giving about 5 times, provided your income was at a certain level. So a lot of people had to sort of drop off on that. But the good news is some banks are happy to help out first-time buyers by giving them 5.5 times their income. Of course, there's a minimum income requirement, but it is not as stringent as it used to be. So that is the plus point about these schemes, right? At the moment, there is 2 popular banks who do it. There was one, and very recently another one got into it as well. Hope few other banks will join these schemes as well, or introduce this type of scheme, and it will help out the first-time buyers. So looking forward to that. But at least you got 2 options now, right? Which is better than not having anything like before.
Definitely. So the next one, another option is parents on the mortgages, which I guess is joint borrower sole proprietor, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's mainly what it is. There is a guarantee scheme as well that was around, but I think it is still around, but it's becoming very less used. A lot of people use this scheme, and banks encourage to use this scheme as well. So where if you're falling short of the borrowing capacity, and let's say most of the time it's parents, right? You get together with your parents and you could buy the property together where you're on the deed, but parents aren't on the deed, but they are part of the mortgage. So their income is used for the assessment, but the house technically is yours because obviously you're the one who's going to be on the deed. That is out there as well, which is good. Like I said before, it's fairly underused, but if you do have that option, maybe it's something that you can consider. And again, there are few new banks who've sort of joined this sort of scheme. Obviously, it opens up more options for first-time buyers, because most of the time, first-time buyers are the ones who need this, right? People who just come out of university, they got their first job, they want a house, but they really can't make those numbers work, right? So we see that being very popular among some of our clients. So hopefully, it's something that will help first-time buyers going forward as well. So this type of mortgage is getting very popular.
Yeah, definitely. There is actually also a new mortgage out for students that are at uni. Technically, it would be for first-time buyers. Have you heard anything about that one?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's a very, very new scheme. I mean, we are still sort of looking at those options. We will sort of let you all know in due course about this. And I'm sure this will be quite popular. Again, it's a very similar scheme where, it helps out people to get into the property ladder with help, usually with their parents, right? So we will keep you posted on this, but it is a very good scheme.
Yeah, definitely. We'll keep you posted, guys. And then the next one we've got is 300k stamp duty to continue.
Yeah.
Basically, first-time buyers are exempt from paying stamp duty up to the value of 300,000, right?
Yeah, that's right. So that's thumbs up. Obviously, we had the stamp duty holiday, which allowed people to be exempt up to 500,000, and that became 250, but not for first-time buyers. For first-time buyers, it is still 300, right? So which is really good. So, previously those limits were much lower. I mean, I think a couple of years ago, they introduced this 300,000 scheme, but with the stamp duty holiday sort of vanishing, the 300,000 still remain. Because a lot of people still think it's 250,000, but for first-time buyers, it is 300,000, which is really good because stamp duty is always a cost, right? So if it saves you a few £1,000s, that gives you a little bit more breathing space, right? I mean, maybe you can put a slightly higher deposit and make your numbers work. And that will continue, so which is good news as well, because we didn't hear any changes to that in this budget, so which is really good.
Yeah, definitely. And then the next one that we're going to talk about is actually something that's, I think, very current. Recently, there's been a lot of press on this green mortgages. And we're seeing more and more kind of deals for these green mortgages, aren't we?
Yes, we are. I mean, it's funny you asked that question because a lot of first-time buyers, especially the younger generation, they are very environmentally conscious, right? They keep asking these questions, right? So I've had some of my sort of recent purchases where it's first-time buyers, especially a lot of the younger generation have been asking me about these green mortgages sort of thing, right? So green mortgages, it's just another mortgage, but you get a discount for being green, right? So if your energy rating is generally A or B, you get a discount from some lenders, right? So some lenders don't have the scheme, but some lenders do, and it's becoming very popular. I think 2022 we might find more lenders coming. We don't know, but looks like that's going to be the trend, right? And I also have seen some lenders who are sort of happy for people who even have a energy rating of C, right? Qualifying for this sort of mortgage as well. So which is again welcome, right? Because generally A, B, and C are classified as green, right? So A being the greenest, but even C, I have seen some lenders sort of say, yeah, you qualify if you got a C sort of thing. So which is a good thing, right? So hopefully you can benefit from that as well. First-time buyers, especially if you're buying a new build, because a lot of new builds are very energy efficient now, right? So some of the older properties may not qualify, or banks may not offer this for older properties. But with the newer ones, there's a very good chance that you can get some discount from certain lenders.
Definitely, definitely. Now, what kind of mortgages are available for first-time buyers who are self-employed?
Right.
Is there anything special?
Yeah. So with that, lenders went a little slow with COVID. Because of the COVID, a lot of self-employed were affected, right? Because obviously they're not in payslip, and a lot of businesses slowed down, especially if you were in industry like hospitality or recreation, where you interact with a lot of people. People started staying away from these. Sometimes they compulsorily closed as well. That affected income of these sector. So a lot of banks and some of the people went on schemes like furlough, and there were sort of self-employed schemes out there as well where the government was giving grants, right? So because of that kind of inflated some of the self-employed income. And some of the banks didn't like it because that was money that came from the government, but it was shown as income in their books, right? So the banks were a little careful. But the good news is, COVID was sort of March 2020. And, a lot of businesses were sort of up in about 6 months' time. So we should be seeing those periods clear. And, you can see the latest accounts for a lot of people, excluding COVID income now. Sorry, I'm an accountant as well, so I see this quite often, right?
So you got the accountant hat on.
Yeah, I have to put it on sometimes. So we see those improvements. And I'm also seeing some banks saying, okay, we'll look at the latest year's accounts and ignore the old one, right? So I'm hoping more and more banks will say that in future, because before COVID, this didn't happen, right? So I think we might see more and more these come out in the next year. We don't know, but I think that's kind of the expectation, because we are seeing one or two who is introducing this now, right? So fingers crossed, this will be more widely available going forward as well, right? So hopefully the self-employed will benefit, because self-employed first-time buyers are people who struggled a lot during last year.
Yeah. What about contractors or day rate? People that earn a day rate salary.
Yeah. I think again we saw a lot of
similar for them.
Yeah, I think we saw a lot of good news for them during this financial year, which started in April. A lot of contractors moved inside IR35. So with that, it was something very new for the banks. So they took a massive back foot on this, right? Because they wanted to see how it is before they sort of introduce schemes. So at the beginning of April, we were really struggling to place mortgages with some lenders. But the good news is, as the year had sort of progressed, the lenders have been watching and they have been coming out with several schemes, right? So now there is much more options for people who is inside IR35 as opposed to April, right? And I can see this scheme sort of evolving. So banks are again starting to feel comfortable with contractors who are sort of inside IR35. As far as I'm concerned, if you're inside or outside, if you earn, say, £300 a day, it's still £300, right? It's just the tax, the way the structure is different, right? That's the way I see it. But obviously, sometimes banks takes time, understandably, to understand what these structures are before they can sort of introduce options for contractors. But that has drastically improved over the last few months. And I think certainly 2022 will be a good year for contractors, because there's more and more options out there now.
Yeah, definitely. And what about foreign nationals? You know, we do, a lot of our customers are foreign nationals, so
Yeah.
what kind of options do they have as
Yeah.
first time buyers?
Well, foreign nationals, again, a lot of banks went on the back foot with foreign nationals, especially, just coming to the tail end of the COVID period. One of the bigger banks actually, who used to lend a lot for foreign nationals, made their criteria quite strict, right? But the good news is, although they made it strict, they also made few routes possible. So, for example, I think you use the word student, right? In the past, students as foreign nationals, it was more or less, impossible to get a mortgage because they were not on a work sort of visa as such, right? But for a student who stayed in the UK for, say, 5 years or whatever it is, options are there now, right? So it's there in a slightly different way. But the good news is there are other lenders who come to this space, even though the main lender who used to do this doesn't offer it for everybody anymore. But there are some lenders who are covering those areas, right? So we may see those kind of, obviously these all started towards the latter end of 2021. So we will see these going into 2022. And hopefully maybe there are a few other lenders who will join this as well, right? So fingers crossed, something to look forward to.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks, Ifti, for your great advice. I just wanted to put a gentle reminder out there that these points may or may not be applicable to everybody. So please do talk to an advisor if you're unsure whether these suggestions are suitable to you. And if you don't have a broker, I will leave RWS contact details below, as we're always more than happy to help. A little reminder that a mortgage is secured against your home or property, so it may be repossessed if you do not keep up with the mortgage repayments. Thank you again for joining us today. We'll be back next week with another episode of Let's Talk Money and Mortgages. Have a great day, stay safe, and we'll see you again soon.